Welcome to this episode of Top 5 The Weird and Mysterious. In this episode, we will be looking at the top 5 underwater mysteries. We do a lot of live shows right here every single week, so do make sure to subscribe and set the bell for notifications. Tomorrow is going to be the second UAP hearing on the UAP hearing for the Senate committee. It's going to be streamed right here. So you do not want to miss that. Along with tomorrow, I will be premiering the panel discussion with the SKINWALKER Ranch team and maybe talking a little bit about season 4 of The Secret of SKINWALKER Ranch. So there's a lot of great things happening this week and tomorrow, to be very specific. I simply cannot wait. But first, let me say hi to people in the live chat. Thank you for everyone watching this show live today. Nick, Grand, Cassidy, Paul, welcome. Jonacide, Zenza, Jessica, Joe, Sever, welcome everyone. It's going to be a really fun show today. It's a lot of things that we're going to cover, and not everything that was on the poll either. I got some surprises for you. Brian, thank you so much for the super sticker and supporting the channel. So let's get straight into it. I'm going to share my screen here as a visual aid, and let's see who can guess what the first one is going to be. Of course, the best is for last. My number one is going to be the last one, and that one was on the poll. So maybe you'll be able to guess which one is my number one when it comes to underwater mysteries. But this one, between you and me, this was a new one. This was a new one for me. And this is called the Bermuda Island. And supposedly, allegedly, it just disappeared. It just disappeared off the map. Let me explain. So historically, this island was first mentioned in the 16th or 18th century by Spanish explorers, and then in the 20th century, the Mexican government claimed the island, and it became a subject of dispute between Mexico and the United States. In 2009, the island gained international attention when it was reported to have just vanished, just disappeared. And in recent years, there has been controversy over whether or not this island even existed. So in 2009, the Mexican government conducted a search for the island, but was unable to locate it. Some experts believe that the island may have sunk due to natural causes or been intentionally destroyed for political or economic reasons. But the thing is, in 2009, we had sonar technology. It couldn't even been that tech couldn't even find this island. And here's another image of kind of where it's supposed to be. So here's Mexico, right? And if we just zoom in, this is where the island again is supposed to be, that was allegedly documented by Spanish explorers in the 16th or 18th century. But overall, the existence of the Bermuda Island remains a mystery, and the topic is still debated by scholars and researchers. So this really sparked a series of investigations by both the Mexican and the US government. Both countries are like, we need to find this place. And based on the analysis of satellite imagery and oceanic data, there is currently no concrete evidence to suggest that this island existed or even disappeared. But here's the interesting thing about this. When Mexico was stating, okay, if this island exists or not, it's ours. It's on our side of the world, therefore we claim it. The United States disputed Mexico's claim, arguing that there was evidence of the island's existence and stating that the island fell within the United States Exclusive Economic Zone, or the EEZ. Mexico countered by stating that the island was in its territorial waters and that the United States had no jurisdiction over it. Now you're probably thinking, why are these two countries fighting for this island that may or may not exist? At the end of the day, as you probably know, it's about money. They think, and they thought at the time in 2009, give and take a little bit of years extra, they just thought that there was a lot of oil there. And if there's an island, they can claim it and therefore claim the oil, making more money, right? It's all about that greed factor there. But putting that aside, To this day, people are still debating on if this island ever existed, and if it did, what actually happened to it. Did the water just swallow it up? As you know, is a plausible explanation. Did someone did someone literally get rid of it? Or did it never exist and it's just a mere myth? We don't know, but I think it's such an interesting mystery, and one that I find truly fascinating, and one that I've never heard of either. Michael, thank you so much. With these underwater mysteries, does it prove historical timelines are incorrect? This is where it gets difficult with historians, archaeologists, geologists, and all these types of experts, because there is definitely a set timeline when it comes to humanity. And there seems to be a lot of ancient relics, potentially even ancient civilizations such as Göbekli Tepe, where it doesn't really fit that timeline narrative of how long humans have been hunter gatherers, changing from cavemen over to actually creating a civilization. So, when we talk about these ancient civilizations, or even ones that are deep within the ocean, it makes you question how old really is humanity. And when we ask these questions, we are questioning everything that we've been taught in school, in books, the conversations that we have, and that's not a bad thing. Of course, if you ever want to have a debate or a conversation with someone, you never want to say, no, you're definitely wrong and what I'm saying is correct, because with information in general, history is written by romanticists. History is written by the winners, and they can change it however they want. And people forget that, including myself. So anything that we read or that we're told, we can only take it with a grain of salt. And if we didn't experience it for ourselves, it's very difficult to say if it even happened or not, even if it even existed or not. And I know that's going to push some people up the wrong way, because then you think, is everything a lie, right? And it boggles the mind. It can make your mind flustered. So we're not going to get too deep into that. But with all of the conversations that we have right here on this channel, we have to ask these questions as well. Now, if it's true or not, I'm not here to tell you yes or no, fact or fiction. I'm just providing you the information that I have come across and have done significant research on. So, Michael, thank you for that. And Cassidy, thank you so much for the super sticker as well. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, Sever, thank you for the RV fun. Hashtag Puck Truck. There's Puck, the Puck Wedgie. Thank you so much, guys. All of you. I do appreciate it. So then in 2012, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea ruled that the island did not exist, and therefore neither Mexico nor the United States had any jurisdiction over the area. The ruling ended the political and legal disputes surrounding the island. I think that's the best way to handle it. Just be like, nope, it doesn't exist. Just forget it. We're not having this war. Do not come crying to me about it. The United Nations did a good job right there. Because imagine a full blown out war for a small island that may or may not exist, just for oil, just for a little bit more money. Disappointing, truly, but at the same time, it is very expected. That's right, Joe. Whoever has the power writes our history. That, to my understanding, is correct. Moving on, because we have a bunch of really great cases today, and they're going to get more and more amazing as we go along. 5 being the meh, and then number 1 being the ooh, right? So let's move on to our next one. And this one I find really fascinating. I've always enjoyed this. And this is the Devil's Sea, also known as the Dragon's Triangle. Now, there's a lot of people that when you hear the stories, you can easily get the Dragon's Triangle and the Bermuda Triangle confused, because they have a lot of similarities, but there are some differences as well. We're going to get into that a little bit later, but first, for those that haven't heard about the Dragon's Triangle, let's get into it, because there's some pretty cool stories attached. So it's right off the coast of Japan, the Philippines, and Guam. And it is said to be the site of numerous unexplained disappearances of ships, planes, as well as various paranormal phenomena. It's a place where planes drop from the sky like birds and large methane deposits cause gas explosions. It's also where the US lost over 20 submarines during World War II, and ships that are twice as big as the Titanic go missing. Here's some alleged stories, some myths and legends attached to this pretty notorious location. First, let's talk about some of the paranormal activity. Many sailors have reported seeing strange lights, hearing unexplainable sounds, and experiencing other paranormal phenomena in the Devil's Sea. Some even believe that the area is a gateway to the underworld. Then you also have all of these unexplained disappearances. Many reports of paranormal activity in the Devil's Sea involves ships and airplanes disappearing without a trace, and these incidents have been reported over the years, and many theories have been put forward to explain them, including rogue waves, magnetic anomalies, and then, jumping to the more crazy side and people stating, no, this is definitely supernatural. This is not normal. And I can give you a interesting example. This story is the Keio Maro number 5, and this was a Japanese research vessel that sank in the Devil's Sea in 1952. This, as I had mentioned, it's a region in the Pacific Ocean located off the coast of Japan, and it's known for its very bizarre weather patterns, more so than the Bermuda Triangle. So this research vessel was part of a research mission to study the area's magnetic and geological features, which were believed to be responsible for the many shipwrecks and disappearances that had been located in that area. But then on September 24th, 1952, the vessel radioed for help, reporting that they were experiencing engine trouble and taking on water. However, the ship suddenly disappeared and no wreckage or survivors were ever found. The disappearance definitely adds to the legend of the Dragon's Triangle as a place of danger and mystery. Some have speculated that the ship was lost due to paranormal activity or supernatural forces, while others believe that it was simply a victim of the area's unpredictable weather and treacherous sea conditions. Either way, it's brought a lot of attention to this area since 1952. It's inspired a lot of books, documentaries, movies, TV shows, and so on, because there are multiple stories like this that have taken place inside of the Dragon's Triangle. And there's even electronic interferences as well. Ships that and planes that have passed through the area deal with navigational errors and other problems. And they think that it could be linked to a magnetic anomaly in the area. Nobody has the answers. There have been multiple research groups that have gone there over the decades to attempt and find answers or at least closure for those that have gone missing. But they usually arrive back with no real information or no real conclusions on how the things that have been reported there are even possible. The ocean in general, it's a beautiful place and it's a scary place. And if you've seen the latest Avatar movie, you'll hear that the ocean gives and it takes. It is the beginning and end of life. And while I love the ocean from afar and I do enjoy seafood, it's I wouldn't casually jump into the deep end and just have a nice swim very far from shore because there's so much that happens there that we don't understand. And it's, in my opinion, it's monster soup. There are monsters there all the time, and we don't even understand because only 10% of the ocean is mapped. That 90%, we have no idea what's going on. And it is less charted than our solar system. Imagine what's down there from the ancient past that we have no idea about. And yet we're so eager to do investigations on other planets when we don't even understand planet Earth yet, or our oceans for that matter, which is 70% of the Earth. So I love the ocean, but from a good arm's distance. But there's more. There's even been sea creatures allegedly found in and around the area. Here is one of them that I wanted to show you called the kappa. And this is a mystical creature from Japanese folklore that is said to inhabit rivers and ponds. But some reports claim that the kappas have been spotted in the waters of the Devil's Sea. And this is often described as a green humanoid creature with webbed hands and feet, a turtle like shell on its back, and a beak like mouth. It's also said to have a bowl shaped indentation on the top of its head, which must be kept wet at all times or it'll lose its power. And according to the legend, kappas are mischievous creatures that like to play pranks on humans, but they can also be helpful if they are appeased with offerings of cucumbers or other gifts. And they are also known for their love of sumo wrestling, and some stories claim that they have even taught humans the art of wrestling. Goes to show that whenever you travel, make sure to always pack snacks. You never know if you're going to need it or if someone else is. Also, just to be safe, keep a little bit of garlic in your pocket too, maybe some salt, because you never know. You never know. But in this case, pack some cucumbers if you're going to go to Japan or the Dragon's Triangle, because if you come across one of these kappas, you better be safe. Now, looking at this image, this is a cryptid, right? A legend there in Japan that goes way back into the past. So I truly love researching such legends. And if you talk to fishermen in the Japanese coastal towns, they believe in these things still. A lot of these monsters and cryptids that have been told through the centuries, if you talk to a local fisherman on the Japanese coast, they're going to be like, no, yeah, these things are real. And we have to be very careful, very cautious, and also very respectful of the water because we do not want to upset any of those creatures nearby. But looking at this image, it looks very odd. I don't know how I would react if I came across one of these entities. I'd be like, luckily for you, I brought some snacks. So here you go. Please tell me all of your secrets and why the Dragon Triangle is so bizarre. Thank you. But even in this area, allegedly, the megalodon has been seen. Now, let me show you what the megalodon looks like compared to your average modern great white shark. This thing is ginormous, and it's an extinct species of shark that lived millions of years ago. And while there is no scientific evidence to suggest that megalodons still exist, some reports claim that these massive creatures have been spotted in the waters of the Devil's Triangle. This is pretty wild, right? And if you look at this image, comparing it to a human, comparing it to a great white shark, and then you see the megalodon, you're like, I would never want to come across something like that. Again, the ocean is monster soup. Someone prove me wrong. The megalodon was a giant prehistoric shark that lived approximately 2.6 million years ago, and it is considered to be one of the largest and most powerful predators that ever existed, which with estimates of its size ranging from 50 to 70 feet, or about 15 to 21 meters in length, and a weight of 60 tons. The megalodon is wide. It has a triangular shaped head with teeth that could reach up to 7 inches or about 18 centimeters in length. Its powerful jaws are designed to crush and tear through thick skin and bones of its prey, which likely include other large marine animals such as whales and sea turtles. But despite its impressive size and power, the megalodons went extinct about 2.6 million years ago for reasons that are still unclear. There are some speculations. such as the change in temperature in the ocean, but for the most part, no one is too sure. Now you have shark fanatics and those that are mortified of sharks. I am neither. But if I came across one of these, I would probably have to change my everything because I'd be so scared. Luckily, they no longer exist, supposedly, but some fishermen have seen them in the Dragon's Triangle. The Japanese National Science Museum did some research back in 1975 to understand the geology and oceanography and the magnetic fields, but they found nothing really out of the ordinary. Even the University of Tokyo has also looked into the area as well. But again, all of these research groups that have gone there over the decades haven't found anything that bizarre, or if they did, that information has not been made public. But the question is, would you want to visit the Devil's Sea, the Dragon's Triangle, if you were given the opportunity to go on a tour, get on a little boat or maybe a cruise ship and you get to go right through it? Would you? Would you keep your eye out for all of the sea creatures and cryptids and maybe see some bizarre weather that wasn't on the weather app, maybe? Would you take that chance? I think it'd be rather interesting. I think it'd be a very unique opportunity if given the chance. But it is one of those locations that has a very negative and sad history to it for a lot of the ships and a lot of the planes that have gone missing in that area. But aside from that, the opportunity of seeing a megalodon or even a kappa, that like turtle looking creature, I'm in. Sure. From a safe distance, if it's a megalodon. Because that thing is ginormous. Hardcore pass. Yeah. It's a pretty freaky. But a little bit earlier, I was going to tell you the difference between the Bermuda Triangle and the Dragon's Triangle. And if you look at this image right here, these two triangles are on the same line. Is that a coincidence? Is there a reason for that? No clue, no idea, but it is something worth mentioning because it's a bit bizarre. So, the Bermuda Triangle is located in the west part of the North Atlantic Ocean, while the Dragon's Triangle is located in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Japan. Their size is about the same, about 500,000 square miles, give or take a little bit. And but the depth of the topography is different. The waters of the Bermuda Triangle are relatively shallow with an average depth of about 5,000 feet. But the Dragon's Triangle, it's much deeper with an average depth of about 12,000 feet. So you got 5,000, 12,000. There's a good difference there. Also, the ocean floor in the Dragon's Triangle is also much more complex with several deep trenches and underwater volcanoes. Looking at the weather and the climate, the Bermuda Triangle is known for its like mild weather, decently calm seas compared to the Dragon's Triangle on the other hand, which has unpredictable weather, including typhoons and high waves. It it's wild. It is wild. But then you also have the cultural significances. They're both different. The Dragon's Triangle has a much longer history of cultural significance and folklore than the Bermuda Triangle. In Japanese mythology, the Dragon's Triangle is known as the Manoumi, or the Sea of the Devil, and it is associated with numerous legends of stories of shipwrecks and supernatural events. The Bermuda Triangle, in contrast, did not gain widespread attention until the mid 20th century. And that was really because of Flight 19, which we're going to get into. But there is one thing that I would like to talk about before we continue on about the Dragon's Triangle, is that there is some speculation that people think that the mysterious continent of Mu is located there. Now you might think, what are you talking about, Christina? And it's just a possibility. We don't know yet, and we're gonna actually talk a little bit more about that later. But Mu is short for Lumeria. And I think Lumeria, Atlantis, we're going to touch on Atlantis a little bit, but we're not going to dive too deep into that. But hold on to that word. We are going to get into it, but some people believe that Atlantis could actually be in or around the Dragon's Triangle. So, moving on. While we're talking about triangles, we might as well get into the Bermuda Triangle. And you think that, like, another one? Well, I hopefully can guarantee you that there might be one or two stories that you have not heard that I'm going to share with you about the Bermuda Triangle. So let me share this image here as a visual aid, because here is about where it is. And there has been about 16 missing aircraft incidents officially cataloged as having occurred in the Bermuda Triangle between 1945 and 2017. 16 missing aircraft. Wow. So the first story I want to talk to you about is the story of Ellen Austin. Have you heard of it? Well, if you haven't, you're in for a treat. Because in 1881, the Ellen Austin, which is a ship, by the way, was sailing from London to New York when it reportedly discovered a abandoned vessel floating in the waters of the Bermuda Triangle. The captain of the Ellen Austin, a man named Baker, decided to board the abandoned ship and search for survivors, or maybe even some cargo that has been left there that could be taken back and sold. Well, this ship was found in pretty good condition, and there were no signs of what had happened to the crew. However, Baker noticed that the ship's cargo of valuable timber was still intact. He's like, why would the crew leave all their valuable timber? This is 1881. That stuff is very important, okay? But Banker decided to tow the abandoned vessel back to the port with the Ellen Austin, but the two ships became separated in a storm. When the storm cleared, the abandoned ship had vanished without a trace. Baker and his crew searched the surrounding waters, but there was no sign of the other ship. After several days of searching, Baker and his crew were forced to abandon their search and to continue their journey. While they arrived in New York, they reported the strange incident to authorities, but no explanation was ever found for the abandoned ship's disappearance. Over the years, there have been numerous theories and rumors about what happened to this abandoned ship and its crew, and some have suggested that the ship was actually a ghost ship. Others have speculated that it was taken by pirates or destroyed by a rogue wave. Some have even suggested that the ship was swallowed up by a sea monster or taken by aliens. When a story is good, people like to make it better and add all these extra details that may or may not exist, but you know how rumors go. They spread like wildfire. It boggles my mind, it really does. But to think that it sounds a lot more like you would want to hear a story that was swallowed up by a sea monster, right? Or taken by aliens, more so than it just disappearing or a wave took it and that's it. You know, it's not as interesting, it's not as fun. And all of us at the end of the day, if you want to admit it or not, I'll do it for you. You want a story that entertains you, but also usually one that sparks your imagination as well. Even though many of us, not all of us, but many of us are adults, we never grow up. We still have those child mindsets, those child curiosities, maybe even the child temperament as well. But I remember when I was younger, I thought my parents had their life together. Like they knew what they were doing, they were on top of the world. It took years until I grew up that my parents were just winging it. Like every other adult does. They just wing it day by day for the most part. But see, when you're a child and you look up at adults, you're like, wow, you have your life together. The funny thing is that the joke's on you. They don't. And neither do we. At least I don't. Cassidy, thank you again so much for the super sticker and supporting the RB Fund. If you are enjoying the stories that we're covering so far, make sure to hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, because there's a bunch more great shows coming to you soon. Very specifically, tomorrow. You do not want to miss tomorrow's shows, plural. Okay? Well, I have a few more stories for you about the Bermuda Triangle. This next one is the USS Marine Sulphur Queen. That was a T2 tanker that disappeared without a trace back in February of 1963. The ship was carrying cargo of molten sulfur from Beaumont, Texas to Norfolk, Virginia, with a crew of 39 men. It was last heard from on February 3rd when the captain reported that the ship was taking on water and was in need of assistance. Despite an extensive search by the U.S. Coast Guard, no wreckage or survivors were ever found. The loss of the SS Marine Sulphur Queen was one of the most high profile incidents in the history of the Bermuda Triangle. The exact cause of the ship's disappearance remains unknown, and various theories have been put forward over the years, including foul play, piracy, and even an attack, once again, by a sea monster, the Kraken. That would be so cool. We love those stories. So many of us love Lovecraft. I think very appropriate to say at that moment. But imagine you hear all these fishermen stories and be like, we better be careful because this last ship, the USS Marine Sulphur Queen, it was taken by the Kraken, right? But then, I am aware that is Greek mythology, and then Lovecraft took that as inspiration and created his own type of creatures. I didn't want to emphasize that, but those stories are so much more entertaining than just being like, oh yeah, it just disappeared. Yeah, sorry about that. Same thing with the news, right? They're going to grab stories that are more entertaining, that have that shock value, that have that more of emotion factor than just, yeah, someone won. Yeah, great, woo. Right? Boring. No one's going to click that. No one's going to buy those types of newspapers. But I have another one for you. Just a few years later, in 1967, a small plane carrying a family of 4 disappeared when going over the Bermuda Triangle. The plane, the Beechcraft Bonanza, was piloted by a man of the name of Robert Lindquist, who was accompanied by his wife and 2 children. The plane disappeared without a trace while flying just right next to the Bahamas, going to Palm Beach, Florida. An extensive search was launched again by the U.S. Coast Guard and the Civil Air Patrol, but no wreckage or survivors were ever found. The cause of the plane's disappearance remains unknown, and various theories have been put forward over the years, including pilot error, mechanical failure, and even a collision with a UFO. Both of these stories of the disappearing craft or vessel and the people have happened right over or right inside of the Bermuda Triangle. And while many of us find these stories so fascinating of these just bizarre things happening, the question is why? What is going on here? What is so special about that location, the Dragon's Triangle, and other locations across the globe that are attracting these strange occurrences? We can even look at the Skinwalker Ranch, where you have this hotspot for paranormal phenomena, UFOs, the hitchhiker effect, and everything else that's so bizarre happening in one location. The question is why? What's the purpose? Are all of these locations just totally bogus? Are all of these locations just for fun to tell stories? I don't think that's the case when we're seeing it all over the globe, so many different cultures talking about these things, and they're taking it very legitimately. The question would be, what is so special about these areas that are attracting these strange occurrences? That's what we want to understand. That's what the Skinwalker Ranch team is attempting to understand. And we don't have the answers to any of those questions that I just asked. And for those that say, I have all the answers to all of your questions, Cristina, look at my face. Look at this. I doubt it. We can have speculations, we can definitely have opinions, but we don't know. And those that do probably are not telling the truth. Maybe they are, and we're just not believing them. I have another story for you about the Bermuda Triangle because it is so famous and it's filled with great stories. And this one is the disappearance of the USS Cyclops. This was a United States Navy ship that went missing back in 1918 during World War I. The ship was used to transport coal for the Navy, and the Cyclops was launched in 1910 and was one of the largest ships in the Navy at that time. But then on March 4th, 1918, the ship left Rio de Janeiro in Brazil en route to Baltimore, Maryland, with a crew of 306 officers and men. However, the ship never arrived at its destination and was never seen again. The disappearance of the USS Cyclops remains one of the greatest mysteries in the history of the US Navy. And despite extensive search efforts, no wreckage or debris from the ship were ever found. The loss of the Cyclops and its crew is considered the single largest non combat loss of life in the history of the US Navy. Could you imagine? Okay. Could you imagine being a part of the Navy and having to tell the families of the 306 officers and men that they are just lost, never to be seen again, and they did not die in combat? How would you even attempt to explain that? But then we can go back to the Bermuda Triangle. There are speculations, and there's a bunch of great movies, TV shows. I think even the Twilight Zone covered this, that sometimes the Bermuda Triangle could in fact be a portal, and you're just going from point A to point B. Is that true? Well, the people that have entered have never exited, and they haven't told us the story. But that would be incredibly interesting if that were the case, because we assume. I'm not going to say always. And when I say we, I mean me. I just assume that if a portal were to open, the grass will be greener on the other side. I don't think about the consequences or the dangers. I'm just going to assume, it's probably better over there than what it is over here. It's probably going to be great. Hopefully they have ramen and some cats and I'll be fine. But probably not. I mean, if you look at the Doctor Strange movies, right? With those just weird creatures and the bad gods, it does now make me think twice about jumping into a portal, but I'll still do it. That's without question. I would still jump in, but I would just be a little bit more hesitant. Maybe tie a string and then jump in. But if we think about all of these people that have gone missing in the Bermuda Triangle and the Dragon's Triangle, what if they didn't die or have some horrible death? But what if they just went to a different plane of existence? Maybe even just a different location here on Earth, for instance, right? That would be a lot more satisfying for the mind, thinking that, like, okay, it wasn't that bad. But what if, okay, here's the crazy one. What if it was a time portal? Either talking about going forward or backward in time. That would be an interesting thing. And if that's the case, would it be here on Earth? But talking about time, well, I have some great surprises for you because we're going to touch on time tomorrow with the Secret of Skinwalker Ranch team. And you can find that right here on this channel. You do not want to miss that panel discussion. There were a lot of things mentioned that I'm like, ooh, this is going to be so awesome. And time was one of those things. Also portals. Obviously, portals was also part of the conversation, so you do not want to miss that. But when we're looking at the Bermuda Triangle, could they have entered a time portal? Could they have entered just a regular type of portal? Or did they all die terrible deaths, maybe even drowning, right? We don't know. All of those that have been lost obviously haven't returned, so we can't hear their story. Brian, thank you. Thank you so much. You've been there 3 times. Dude, that's awesome. There was a cruise that recently went to the Bermuda Triangle with Micah Hanks, Jim Harold, Peter Robbins, and a few others. And they all made it back safe. They were fine. So we could also ask, what are the conditions for something really strange to happen? Have it be a disappearance, have it see something really strange in the water that we would classify as a cryptid. What are the circumstances that would need to take place in order for a whole plane, a whole ship to just disappear? That's not always the case. Yes, there are airplanes. The majority of airplanes do avoid going over the Bermuda Triangle, but that's not always the same with ships. Ships can go through it. In this case, there was a cruise just very recently about it, right? So Jessica says, is the show tomorrow pre-recorded? Yes, it is pre-recorded tomorrow. So that's why I know all of the questions and answers, because it already happened. But it is something that is definitely worth watching. I guarantee it. Like that commercial. I guarantee it. I don't know what that guy with the... Never mind. Okay, moving on. The last thing I want to touch on about the Bermuda... Actually, we don't even have time. All right, I'm just going to move forward. The famous one is Flight 19. Many of you have heard it. It's kind of how the Bermuda Triangle got famous in the 1950s, was because of that. So you're probably familiar with it. We're not going to go over it again, but this next one, talking about ancient civilizations, this next one I feel is very appropriate, kind of while on the conversation. Let me share my screen here of the actual location. And this is the Yonagami Monument. And this is a submerged rock formation located off the coast of the Yonaguni Island in Japan. And it was discovered in 1986 by a local diver. And the monument measures approximately 5 by 40 meters and is composed of large flat rocks arranged in a stepped formation. If you look at this, it looks like an ancient civilization in water, right? Right, because you see these beautiful, perfect straight lines. There are other images of stairwells. Look at this. Okay. And you have 2 camps when it comes to this. Those that think, this is definitely was once an ancient civilization that got buried and just submerged in water. And others are stating, no, this is all natural. This happened naturally. These perfectly straight lines that you're seeing, nature did it. You're welcome. Right? And it's really interesting, because if this were to be above water, that would have taken place about 13,000 years ago. Seeing how the water levels have risen since then. So this civilization, this rock was above water 13,000 years ago, give or take a little bit. That's before we already thought that humans were no longer hunter and gatherers, because that happened about 10,000 years ago. So you have that little gap of a few thousand years thinking we shouldn't have been able to make this. And there are many other places now underwater, ancient ruins, which were above water at some point, and they got buried, submersed in water. And the question is, what happened to them, to the people that were there? What happened to their documentation of their life? Did it ever exist? Was it collected and has not been made public? These are the questions that we have to ask. But looking at this right here, what's interesting is that even though it was kind of discovered-ish in 1986, there were several myths and legends associated with the monument beforehand. And according to one local legend, the monument was built by a race of giants who once inhabited the island. Others believe that the monument could be the remains of the lost continent of Mu, which we touched on a little bit earlier. Again, Mu is short for Lemuria. So we can dive a little bit deeper into that. But when you look at these images, some of these lines are so straight and blocks next to each other that's with seams that have no gaps. It kind of reminds me of some of the ruins in South America. And yet, some people are stating, no, this was all made very naturally. The water did this. There are some things that I'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, it's understandable. There's other things that I'm thinking that that's a hard stretch. That's a very, very intense stretch right there. Because if the water did this, where are all the others? These things should be all over the world, these perfectly straight lines. But they're not. They're not. But they are right here off the coast of Japan. But I did want to touch on the continent of Mu because this gained traction in the 1800s and then again in the early 1900s, where there were these alleged tablets by the Mayans that were stating, well, Lemuria, Mu, is just right off the coast of Japan. And then they're going to think, oh my gosh, Atlantis, right? We all need to start searching there. And so then when people saw this monument back in the 1980s, they were like, could this be some of the ancient buildings, ancient relics of Atlantis that so many of us are so fascinated with? Is that what this is? We haven't gotten those answers yet. There have been multiple research groups looking into this location, but no one's put their foot down and stating, oh, this is definitely Atlantis. We haven't heard that yet. Not yet. And for those that are interested to look more into the mysterious continent of Mu, you can find that online. Also, Jimmy and I did a show on some other underwater civilizations. Totally recommend that you watch that episode because we do go more into depth on this. But right here, there is a subduction zone off the coast of Japan, and it is part of the Ring of Fire. So the Pacific plate is slowly subducting below the Asiatic plate. So it's literally diving down. And that's why there are so many earthquakes in Japan and volcanoes in the Japanese islands, because of the subduction zone. So it would be understandable that there should actually be multiple ancient civilizations in the water, right? Because the land is always shifting. It's always moving around. And I cannot stress enough that only 10% of our oceans have been mapped right here on Earth. And 70% of Earth is water. So imagine how many other civilizations are deep within the water that we haven't found yet. How many thousands of years ago do those civilizations go? And if the sea levels have been very different in the past, during and between ice ages, what is hidden away? I want to know these answers, and I bet you want to know them as well. While I'm so fascinated with space and space exploration, I want to get a diving license and just start looking for ancient civilizations. But it seems that for the most part, a lot of them are very, very, very deep, to the point where we just simply cannot handle it. At least not yet. I'm waiting for the advanced tech of like super awesome scuba suits, so we can go like super deep in the water and not have to suffer with water pressure and nitrogen poisoning. Right? Terrible. We don't want that. Well, I have the best for last. Maybe you guessed it right. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you're in for a surprise. Maybe you're not. But this one, this is the biggest mystery when it comes to the ocean. And when I share my screen here, some of you might think, Christina, I knew it. I knew you were going to cover this. And this is the Baltic Sea Anomaly. I love this one. because this is a feature visible on an indistinct solar image taken by Peter Lundenberg by the Swedish group Ocean X. Not this image in particular. I'll show you the actual sonar image. It's this one. This is kind of like what people would assume it would look like. But here's the actual image. And this was found off the Gulf of Bothnia in June of 2011. That's so recent. In the terms of science and discovery, that's in arm's reach. So the team suggested that their sonar image showed an object with unusual features of seemingly non-natural origin, promoting speculation published in tabloid newspapers that the object was possibly, maybe, potentially a sunken UFO. Then you have other people commenting and stating, nope, the Earth did this. This is glaciers made this when they were just cruising through the ocean. That's what happened. This is totally natural. But again, if you look at these straight lines here, there's no way that glacier deposits could have created something like that, because if that were the case, we would see these type of anomalies all across the ocean. But we're not seeing them everywhere. We're seeing just this one because of a, quote, glacial deposit. We should be seeing a lot more, and we're not. So is it something that's artificial? A lot of people are leaning towards that possibility when you look at these images. But then you have those that think that, like, no, everything and anything is of natural causes. Which, if you want to have that mindset, that's totally fine. But the biggest thing, in my opinion, is being an open-minded skeptic. To ask the questions, ask all of the questions, but to also be like, anything is possible. Be open-minded, but not to the point where your brains spill out. We don't want that. Okay, we gotta keep that brain in that skull right there. But there's been people looking into these images. There have been other research groups going over to that area of the Gulf of Bothnia to get a better understanding of this weird anomaly. And when they were diving on the object, all the electronics on the ship started glitching. And there are some good documentaries on YouTube on that, which I do recommend, because it's fascinating. Because let's back it up to the Dragon's Triangle and the Bermuda Triangle. Ships, planes that have gone across those areas, they deal with electronic malfunctions, just like right here off the Gulf of Bothnia, where ships, the diving crew and the ship right above it were dealing with electronic malfunctions, with glitching. Why? What is going on there? Is there something special in these locations? And if so, what is it? That's what we want to understand. What is it? And this, I mean, just looking at this image in particular is unbelievable. Something out of Star Trek, right? Now here is what people would assume that it would look like. And looking at this, I mean, it's a stunning image right here. But no one's gotten a clear photograph of this anomaly. But some have even classified this as the Roswell of the ocean. And people are thinking, is this a UFO? Is this alien technology? And I would say, if it was, and even if we had an idea or of a speculation, if it was, it wouldn't be under the ocean now. It wouldn't. It would have been taken out so quick and put in a lab to be researched. So what is it really? We don't know. We don't know. Hopefully we'll find those answers in the next few years with the better technology that we get. But if that has been there for thousands of years, okay, wouldn't it be encrusted with formations of rocks? You would think so. But if you look at this sonar image, it looks very clean. You're not seeing any growth here, because if you were, you wouldn't see these straight lines here. You wouldn't. if it was there for thousands of years. But if it was something more recent, okay, it's understandable. Okay, fine. But what is below the rock surface, though? That's what we want to understand. That's what I want to get an answer to. What is below the rock surface? See, with this, when we have these conversations, we're filled with questions, never enough answers. But I do like that we're able to think outside of the box, to question the information, but also question ourselves as well. And looking at this, they are perfect circular holes in the structure. And many parts of this look artificial. So, how could it be glacial deposits? How? Someone give me an explanation, but one that's reasonable. Because I'm not buying it. I'm not. But this is one of the biggest mysteries when it comes to the ocean, when it comes to the mysteries of anything that's underwater. This is just one of them that is unbelievable, and definitely one of my favorites as well, because it just look at the image, just look at it. And if you're listening to this on a podcast platform, jump over to YouTube, look at the images that I'm looking at, because it's going to make you scratch your head and you're going to think, I don't think this is glacial deposits. And if you do, let me know why. I would like to understand your reasoning on that. I'm all about hearing other people's opinions and listening to other people's perspectives as well, because that only broadens mine. That's why I love having these conversations. Also, if you want to, bring this conversation over to the Discord server with 1,600 other like minded members to share your thoughts, your insights, your opinions, your experiences, and more. Make sure to like this video if you enjoyed today's show on the top 5 underwater mysteries. Hit the notification bell right down on YouTube, because we're going to be doing 2 streams tomorrow that you do not want to miss. One of them we will be streaming the UAP Senate Committee hearing, and the second one will be the panel discussion with the Skinwalker Ranch team. Follow me on Twitter at eyes_on the skies for all of my updates and news. And if you are enjoying the overall content on this channel, consider being a Patreon supporter. All of the funding goes straight into the channel and to the RV fund. Maybe sometimes a little bit for ramen too, here and there. But, for the most part, straight for the channel. Cassidy, thank you again so much for that super sticker. That is it for today. I will see all of you tomorrow. Be safe. And remember, keep your eyes